Hey everybody, welcome to Sound Bombing. I created this show for people who want to experience a radical, life-changing journey through the sounds of my diverse guests. I hope that each sound you hear on this show will strengthen your faith, encourage your dreams, and challenge you to awaken the greatness within you.
Drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We're gonna drop the bomb. Drop the bomb. We come to drop the bomb. Drop the bomb.
This is a journey into sound. A journey which along the way will bring to you new color, new dimension, new values, and a new experience.
Lamar Darnell Shields.
What's up, Sound Bombers, my bomber community? I hope that you are staying safe. I hope that you are staying sound. I want to send a major shout out to all of the healthcare workers that are out there on the front lines that are doing some showman work. We are proud of you. But I also want to send a shout out to my teachers. I think we're forgetting about the teachers who are on the front line. For all those parents now, you understand when you would bring your kid to the classroom and you would say something like this, well, he doesn't do this at home. She doesn't behave that way at home. Now I'm sure you're seeing all the behaviors that many of those amazing teachers have been talking about. Also, shout out to all the people that work for all the cable networks that are out there, our electricians. I think we forget about them with everybody streaming right now. These people are climbing poles. They're actually making sure that our streaming services are working. Shout out to all the people that are working in the grocery stores. You know, I'm a huge Whole Foods and Trader Joe's lover. So I thank you all. Every time I walk into a space, be it Target, Walmart, or wherever I'm going, I have my gloves and I have my mask, and you all know I got the dopest mask from my girl Marjorie Nicole. I'm gonna interview her on Tuesday. But whenever I go into the stores, I'm thanking the Target workers, I'm thanking the custodians, I'm thanking anybody that's out here who's on the front line, really, really supporting us to make our lives function. This is a time where the village is coming back together. I've met so many people in my neighborhood that I did not know existed. So Sound Bombing community, I just want to thank you all for always tuning in and supporting the work that I'm doing. I want you to continue to build your immune system. I say this all the time. Build your immune system so you can fight off a lot of these infections and these diseases. Of course, many of you all know I'm a vegan, and I have a very strong immune system because of the diet, or rather the lifestyle that I've actually chosen. And so wash your hands. We talk about social distancing, but you can still call people. You can still read a book. You can still write a song. You can still write a poem. There's so many things that you still can do that we want you to continue to do, because again, even though you're quarantined, pick up a new habit, pick up a new hobby, but also reach out to your family members just to let them know that you're thinking about them. Last week on Sound Bombing, I had Dr. Tawana Burroughs, who came on and talked about pursuing your passion. She was amazing. My next show is going to include Dr. Jeffrey Robinson. Thank you all for tuning in to that show. Dr. Robinson talked about how you can survive in small business. Again, Dr. Robinson, who's a good friend of mine, he teaches at Rutgers, but he's an international teacher and trainer. And he gave us some very, very strong and good tips about how do you keep your business moving during these tough times. He said there's going to be a whole lot of new businesses that are going to be springing up, a whole lot of new entrepreneurs, because out of necessity, we become creative. And this has been a very creative state for me. I have been creating and creating and creating. I believe that when I'm in creation, creation is the closest thing to God. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. And while many fears I know of the diagnosis of COVID-19, millions more are experiencing a new resurgence of diagnosis of depression and anxiety. This pandemic has taken a significant toll on the mental health of not just those who already are in treatment for mental health challenges, but folks who are new to feelings of worry and sadness or new to being intensified. Even being cooped up indoors as a result of state orders to stay at home, we can't escape it being the top discussion no matter what app or phone you're using. We have access, or our website we open, or a video we watch. Much of that discussion is about the virus itself and the rise in cases, deaths, and stories of the ways this virus is changing our lives indefinitely, which all compound our anxiety about what is happening now and what could happen, and depression about the loss and a loss of joy of things to look forward to. In my own mental health journey, I'm fortunate to have access to care, resources, and individuals who've been helping me and so many others get through this unprecedented time. And one of those individuals is joining me in the BalmShelter today. She is Dr. Balin A. Durr, a board-certified psychiatrist with over 20 years experience in child, adolescent, and adult psychiatry, who uses a holistic, collaborative approach to mind, body, and wellness from the healing intersection of traditional and alternative medicine and spiritual well-being. Dr. Durr has provided care largely to the vulnerable, uninsured, and underserved in a variety of clinical settings, including as the director of the Acute Child and Adolescent Psychiatry Inpatient Unit of Ridge Hospital in Lexington, Kentucky, founder of a private practice, had a groundbreaking role in providing telepsychiatry throughout Illinois for 8 years at Aunt Martha's Youth Service Center, one of the largest federally qualified health centers in Illinois. And in her current role as a psychiatrist at the Will County Community Health Center in Illinois, another FQHC, she provides primary and preventative mental health care services, provides lectures to medical providers, and instructs physicians, assistants, students, and nurse practitioner students. Dr. Durr graduated from Emory University with a BA in sociology. She obtained her medical degree from the University of Illinois at Chicago. She completed 9 months of pediatrics and Montefiore Medical Center in Bronx, New York, and completed the general psychiatry residency and child and adolescent psychiatry residency at the University of Florida. Dr. Durr is also a poet and an author of Heaven Abounds in You, The Journey to Joy. She has shared her empowering message in the U.S., Canada, and in the Caribbean, and also in Europe, because I checked out some of her videos when she was hanging out in France, offering practical tools and solutions from the healing intersection of mind, body, medicine, science, and spiritual well-being to awaken and empower you to live out your infinite potential to live life in the sweet spot. Dr. Durr's vision is to heal minds through touch, hearts, and change lives. She believes passionately when you heal your mind, all things are possible. Dr. Durr, welcome, welcome, welcome to the BalmShelter. How are you doing?
I'm doing great and so happy to be joining you to have this conversation today.
Well, it has been a long time, and I'm so glad that we reconnected. You know, when we did reconnect, I talked about the Heaven Abounds in You, The Journey to Joy. I love that book. I love what it did for me at the time. I'm sure it's saving a lot of lives. I'm sure people can use it right now. I'm sure you have been super busy with this pandemic that's taking place across the country. What are some things that you've been doing since this thing has taken place?
Well, interestingly enough, as a psychiatrist, I'm always busy. And especially as a child and adolescent psychiatrist, the services are in high demand and have been even before I entered the specialty. There are somewhere around 7,000 child and adolescent psychiatrists in the whole country. So do the math, 50 states, there's 7,000 providers or so. And you can see that that's going to create a significant or severe shortage and a significant demand for services. So again, I'm always busy in that regard. As it relates specifically to the COVID virus, of course, there's been the need to adjust and to adapt. And frankly, from my way of seeing it, that's just what life calls us to do anyway. It's constantly changing and transforming and evolving, and we are called upon to do that as well. I actually was in the office for about a week before my scheduled vacation took place. So I'm actually just finishing my vacation and about to go back to work tomorrow. But of course, one of the things that you've already alluded to is I have a son who's in high school, but I also have an adult daughter who's in law school. So obviously, as an adult, she's been fine. Of course, they closed her school. She's not in class, but she's having to do classes, online. But my son, it's the same issue, and I've have to make accommodations or adjustments, frankly. And again, I'm so grateful for his teachers, and a shout out to Miss Lauren Freeman in particular, who is his interventions for success teacher. She provides, support and a lot of encouragement and additional support that he needs because he has he requires that. So I'm particularly grateful to her in particular. I'm always grateful to his teachers and the administration and what they've done and the adjustment in particular because he needs the additional support. I think that him as an independent learner, he doesn't do that well. So actually, what I had to do was to take him to his sisters who lives in Michigan because Hillary's attending the University of Michigan Law School. And so he's been staying up there with her for a couple weeks in order to again give him that additional support in order for him to be successful academically.
Ain't nothing like some cheap babysitting, right? Keep it in the family.
No, wait, hold on. Wait,
it probably came with a price. You said a college
no,
student.
no,
Let me back
hold
up.
on.
I'm sure it wasn't
Yeah,
cheap.
yeah, I'm about to say,
What did you
no,
have to? What did you have to buy her?
no, wait a minute, hold on. Wait a minute. But here's the thing that we as parents, you really know. Number one, even when your children become adults, if you can, and if you have the mind and the awareness that recognizes this, for me, I'm the wind beneath her wings. So I do what I can to support her, but not cripple her. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So but what that means is that she is not out of my pockets yet. That's what that means.
I like how you so professional. See, that's what happens when you got all those degrees behind your name. She is not out of my pocket. That's such a politically great way to say that this girl is still calling me, asking me for a whole bunch of stuff, and I'ma still look out for her. So I appreciate all the shout outs, the thank yous, and I'm so grateful that your son is in a good place, in a safe place. So the first question I have is about people suffering anxiety and depression in general. It's high for a lot of people, particularly people who maybe don't experience either of these things or really have sensed them before. What is anxiety first? And then, so for those that are new to these feelings, what support or thoughts might you have for them?
Okay, so simply, anxiety is excessive worry or nervousness wrapped in fear. So, we all occasionally have some things that come up that we worry about, but it becomes a problem, or frankly, when it starts to interfere with our ability to live life on a normal basis, to fulfill our duties, responsibilities, and roles. When those feelings reach that level where they interfere with us living the life that we want to live and fulfilling the duties and roles and responsibilities that we have, and we can't because of those emotions. That's what constitutes an anxiety disorder. But certainly that those feelings again of excessive worry wrapped in fear. that for some folks can they lead them to shut down. That's what anxiety is.
So for those that are new to these feelings, what support or thoughts might you have for them? Because we're seeing a rise in anxiety. I know as an educator, seeing it in the classroom, but I'm sure right now, and when you get back to work tomorrow, and I'm sure your phone and emails have been blowing up. What are some of those things that we can share with those individuals when this stuff is new to them? I've never felt like this before. I'm in this house and I'm watching the news and I don't know where these feelings are actually coming from.
So you know what? I am so happy that you asked that question because I don't think the average person recognizes how basic and fundamental that is to their experience in life, period. And what do I mean by that? Is we all have a point of view, a perspective from which we see ourselves, which we see our possibilities, which we see life, and that creates a state of mind and or a mindset, and how we see it determines how we experience it. And that is so critical and so fundamental, but many people are unaware that their point of view is, number one, that they're creating it, number two, that it's within their control, number three, that they're therefore creating their experience of life, therefore have the power and the ability to change all of it. They have the power to change their point of view. They have the power to then change how they feel, the actions they take, and the experiences and the results that they create. So the first thing that's so important is to be aware, or to wake up to that. And to give you a concrete example of what I mean, because I know for some people they may be going, huh?
You
what,
you
what
must
you
be
talking about, Willis?
you looking at
What
my
you talking about,
face.
Willis?
You looking at my
Uh,
face.
yeah. What you talking about,
As they
Willis?
say in the black church, make it plain, sister, make it plain.
Yeah. So here's what I mean by that. The weather is the weather, and we have no control over the weather. Last I checked, you got control over the weather.
Let me tell you, as I'm looking out through the studio windows, hell to the no, because if I did, it would be much. My perfect weather is 75 or 80 degrees. So to answer your question, no.
All right.
Nor do I want that responsibility. First of all, let me back up because I think the weatherman and the weatherwoman are probably two of the most hated people on this planet when they're wrong. So I do not want that responsibility, and nor do I control the weather.
Okay. So, and why that's so important is because it demonstrates that there is much outside of us that we don't control. And but the beauty of it is that the weather is what the weather is. And you could take 10 people and ask them to give you their point of view of the weather and potentially get 10 entirely different responses. Some people may love it. Some people may be, it's okay. Some people maybe go, yeah, this, I don't prefer this, but and then someone else may be, "Ah, I hate this." And the weather is just the weather. And what's determining each person's experience is their point of view of it. So how they see it, their thoughts and beliefs about it, that it's okay, it's not okay, it should be this way, it shouldn't be that way, or shouldn't be this way, it should be different. And that is then those thoughts are connected to a feeling. Those feelings then are connected to us taking action, which creates our experience of it. And that's what I mean when I'm saying that that is so fundamental and critical to our experience of life and ourselves. And and a lot of times what people are reacting to is, in terms of when they get anxious, is the thought that I don't have control over this. And the other part that there is also going on is that I'm powerless to do anything about it. Those two beliefs, which may not be true at all, are what contribute to feelings of anxiety and depression.
So I hear you say this. So one key to what can cause anxiety for some people is the fact of control. So especially with what's going on, there's a lot of what's happening that we cannot control at all. We can control staying at home and aspects of that, but we can't control the disease or the spread of the disease to some degree. So how can we deal with the difficulty of control and if it exasperates our anxiety?
Well, the main way to deal with that is the recognition that what you've always had control over is what's going on within yourself. Nobody controls what I think. As I like to tell people, is there some little man up in your head pulling levers and switches? No, because the wizard is in Oz, not in your head. So if I understand that nothing and no one outside of me ever had control over what's going on within me, and then I've always had control over what's going on within me, my thoughts, my feelings, and the actions I take in response to what's happening either within me or outside of me. So that recognition that I don't need to control what's going on outside of me, because a lot of it I don't control anyway, that is so key. And the other part of it that is key is the recognition that I've always had control over me. And that alleviates those feelings of powerlessness. And that is that sense of, and that's what to empower yourself means. It means to draw out what's in you. And as I've been having this conversation with people, one of the, and I know that you're going to really appreciate this, so oftentimes I'll ask educators, do you know what the root word of educate means?
To pull out.
And
pull out what's already in you instead of stop pushing stuff in.
I knew had some sense.
Every now and then I pull it out just a little bit, just to remind people, it's like playing spades for my black folks to know, like I'm carrying that big joker. Every now and then I pretend like I don't know what I'm talking about. But yes. And again, I know that I knew where you were going with that. But yes, it's to pull those things out. But in the society that we live in, we're constantly pushing in. And that's not how learning is learned. That's not how teaching is. It's not about forcing things. It's about allowing those things to come out.
Absolutely. So I was going to say, see how wise and how amazing you are. And so if you understand that, have that same point of view, that same perspective of yourself, then you understand that you don't need to control what's going on outside of you. What you need to do is draw out what's in you in order to handle what's happening outside of you.
And then, do we really have any control over anything? One of the things that I do is I have one of my strategies is called the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. We don't really have any control. So I use this prayer on a daily basis to remind me that I am great, but I'm not as great as I think I am. How important are words and how important are mantras to help people get through the day-to-day of what they're dealing with? You're a writer, you're a poet, you're a lecturer, and I know you understand the power of words. How important are those to you? And then how important are those to individuals that are dealing with what we're dealing with right now?
So words are an expression of our thoughts and beliefs. As a man thinketh, so he is. What you think over and over again is going to come out in your words and in your behavior. And to say we don't have control over things, I think is a misstatement and an error. And what I mean by that is it's so critically important that people recognize and take ownership of their own power. What is power? Every time you take an action, you do what? You create what? Results.
Results. Mm-hmm.
Every time you take action, you create a result. So what is that if not power? Power is a creative potential to take action and create results. And we've always had, again, control over ourselves. And the fact of the matter is over ourselves. I'm not saying over other people. I'm not saying over necessarily circumstances. We can attempt to influence and on the negative side of things, manipulate, coerce, people and circumstances and outcomes. But we know we don't control what's going on outside of us. But it is so important for people to recognize that they've always had power over them. I tell people, I said, when you have an infant, your children were an infant, did you fully control them?
Let me think. Which one? Gotta think about which the three of them. I'm not sure.
The answer to that is you never had full control over any of them.
Never.
Even when they're an infant, did you control when they peed and pooped?
No, or crying or anything.
Or cried?
Like that. Yeah.
You absolutely didn't. So if you don't have full control over a 2-year-old or an infant, how do you have control over anybody else or certain circumstances? You don't. We don't have, quote unquote, control over the virus, but what I have control over is how I see myself, how I see the virus, how I feel about it, and what I do in response to it. So you brought up the word mantra, and I love mantras because and I love the understanding of what words mean, because when I understand what they mean, then it enables me to take actions and create results in a very consistent way. The word mantra, for those who may not be familiar with it, it means mind tool. And so what you are doing based upon what you tell yourself every day over and over again is a mantra, even if you don't call it that. You are programming your thinking and your BS, which is your belief system, based upon what you tell yourself every day, all day long. And what you think, eventually you're telling yourself over and over again, and what you decide is the truth moves into your subconscious, and then that programming is just running automatically like an autopilot. And so even if you're not paying attention to it with your subconscious mind, it's going to create your feelings, because thoughts are automatically created to a feeling, which then drives your behavior, takes actions, you're creating your results. So what you say reveals what you really think and what you believe, and especially what you do. More than what you say demonstrates what it is you actually think and believe. So you can think, if you're telling yourself, I can't, guess what? You can't. If you tell yourself that I'm at risk, I'm going to get hurt, I'm going to get sick, I'm going to get killed, guess what? That is what's going to become your experience, because unbeknownst to the average person, not only are your thoughts connected to a feeling, but they're also connected to a chemical or hormone or the neurotransmitters in your body, and you're physically altering the structure and function of your body based upon your repetitive thoughts and feelings.
And I'm so glad that you sort of broke down the science to that. I was listening to a speaker talk about the power of your mind, and I'm into brain research and mind development and mindfulness. And he was sharing a story about an individual who was traveling on a train, and he was actually working on a train, and he got locked in a freezer car where the food was. And so they discovered him. They couldn't find him. They discovered him maybe like a week later. And what happened was he had sort of kept a journal. He wrote on the inside of the car that I'm going to die, I'm going to freeze to death, I'm going to die, I'm going to freeze to death. And so they eventually find this guy, and what they discovered that it was first of all, there was enough oxygen in there for him to last for several days. The temperature inside of the car was only 59 degrees. But what they discovered, he convinced himself that he was going to die. He convinced himself that he was going to freeze, and he believed that. And so I'm loving how you adding that research in and say, over and over again, we say these things over and over again, and they happen. And I'm afraid, Doc, that individuals who are watching media all day, watching TV, as I said in my opening, watching the news, that they're going to take on this stuff. They're going to take on all the other things that are out there in the universe, and then they're going to make themselves sick. How can we get them to turn the corner and sort of get away from that? And what strategies can you provide them that some real plain strategies that they can do in their own home?
Okay, and you notice, I keep the emphasis on this because there's a difference between fact and truth. What I mean by that is, does the coronavirus exist? Is it fact that certain people are getting infected? Yes. But is it also fact that certain people are dying? Yes. But it's also true that some people who are getting infected have mild symptoms and are fully recovering. Even some of those folks who are becoming seriously ill are also recovering. So it's fact that people get infected. It's fact that people get sick. Um, but it's not truth that everybody dies from it. So it is so important, again, that we take control over what we have control over, which is what I believe I've chosen to believe. I don't think we should fear the coronavirus or fear anything. I think it's important to have respect. And what I mean by that is to know and acknowledge what it's capable of and to treat it accordingly, to act in accordance with what could happen if I get infected. So what things do I need to do in order to keep myself safe? See, that's what I have control over. You know what I mean? I don't have control over the virus. I have control over me and what I do in response, and what I need to do in order to keep myself safe, what I need to do in order to keep people that I love and care about safe, what I need to do in order to do as much as possible in terms of my own behavior and actions so that others are safe, meaning that I'm not doing things that possibly infect other people because of the connection. So that's why I keep emphasizing this aspect about what I have control over. What I have control over is to say, yes, this is a threat, and that's one of the other things too that's a fundamental issue for people in terms of how you see things. Either you see life as threatening, or you see that life is for me. You see that there's an abundance of all things. There's an abundance of water, an abundance of trees, and I tell people, how many species of insects or flowers are there? How much water is there on the planet? You know, how many trees are there? There's an abundance. How many stars are there in our galaxy? Hundreds of billions. How many galaxies are there? Hundreds of billions. Hundreds of billions times hundreds of billions is an abundance of stars in our universe. So you either see it as that, and therefore that energy or the life force in all things is there for me to use creatively to my benefit and to the benefit of humanity, or I see life as threatening. It's out to get me. It's going to hurt me. And in this way, for those folks who see it that way, that it is the coronavirus. So we must begin with how I see what's happening and how I see myself and the power within me in order to respond to it in a creative, positive way that helps me and that helps others. Understanding that, like you said, the example that you used, that when I'm in fear, I'm releasing chemicals in my body. One of those being cortisol. Cortisol, over time, it'll harm us because it impairs our immune system. Well, what do you need? You need your immune system to fight off the invaders, whether that's a virus or whether it's bacteria, or whether it's abnormal cells that could become cancer. So you want to do the things that strengthen your immune system. There is so much about nutrition that in general people don't know, but this is March. Even setting aside the coronavirus, in March, this is a peak season for the flu. Why? Because it is also the time when our immune systems tend to bottom out, because 70% of people who live in the U.S., 70% of people in the U.S. who live north of Atlanta are vitamin D deficient. And vitamin D is important in a number of things. Besides your bone health, it's also important in keeping your immune system healthy. It's also important in anxiety. It's also important in depression. There have been studies been done where, there was a researcher, a vitamin D researcher, was also taking care of prisoners in a prison, and there was a flu outbreak, but his patients stayed healthy because he had them on vitamin D. So we need to look at those basic things that we can do to strengthen our immune system. Also, one of the things that cortisol does, in addition to impairing immunity, it also causes the release of inflammatory chemicals. And chronically, those things are what lead to heart disease and heart attacks and certain cancers. And we even now have an understanding that part of the illness process for many illnesses is inflammation, including in cases of dementia. So it's important that we, again, recognize our own power, and that what I'm choosing is either going to create health, or it's going to, and sustain health, or it's going to create and sustain illness.
So I appreciate, everything that you said, because again, you're giving some very, very specific things that the average person can do at home who's facing this situation, and we want them to get out of this. I want to go back to something that you mentioned a little earlier. I know you referenced your son staying with your daughter, and many of us don't have that privilege. So what that means is a lot of kids are home, parents are home, everyone's at home now because people are working from home and schools are closed. So for parents that are stuck at home, it's a lot to handle. It's a lot going on. What advice might you have for some parents to kind of stay calm and just manage through this tough time?
Okay, so let's put things in this framework, and which is this. We identify what the problem is, and one of the things that provokes anxiety and depression and spins us out of control and takes us down the rabbit hole is the persistent focus on what we feel the problem is. And we, again, need to shift our thinking, shift our perspective to finding solutions. Work the problem, find the solution. Work the problem, find the solution. Because you don't come up with solutions by just talking about the problem. So if instead of focusing on coronavirus, acknowledge that there is coronavirus, but shift your focus to acknowledging what the problem is, to working the problem and finding solutions. So when you do that, you're going to do the things, like I said, focusing, I want to be healthy. I don't want to be ill, but we're not going to talk about illness. We're going to focus on health. So what things do I need to do health? And I'm going to come back to that too. But in this case, focus on what's the solution to being here at home in a very in interacting with people and their personalities, their likes and dislikes, and what we're going to do and not do, and getting on each other's nerves, and frankly getting on my own nerves in terms of what's the solution to that. So number one, I think the one of the most important things is we got to stay calm. First of all, focus on solutions, and number two, stay calm. What are those things that looks like? Is even doing things like being still and just pausing and taking deep breaths. It helps to connect you. And I had one of the fathers of children I was taking care of his, and I told him this. I said, I understand some people don't like, they don't feel like they do well with meditation. I said, but even if you pause and take a few breaths and just be fully present and paying attention and focus on your breathing so that you slow your breathing. They'll say the exhale is longer in seconds than the inhale, however many seconds you want to start that off or do that with, building up to 8 seconds on the exhale, 7 on the inhale. But he went back to his doctor, and she was like, what have you been doing? He said, why? He said, because your blood pressure is normal now. And guess what he had been doing?
Breathing properly.
Breathing.
Which
breathing.
I am a proponent. I'm always talking about mindfulness and breathing. 2 apps that I use is Calm and I use Headspace, which are, some of the more popular mindfulness apps. So I believed that. I believe that actually happened to that gentleman. But thank you for introducing that to him and to the world.
So here's all mindfulness is, because we kind of hear certain terms and we're like, what is that? They got some some mojo hooey pooey going on,
No, folks get
you know.
nervous.
Yeah,
We just talk
absolutely.
about breathing. You know that. We just want you to make sure
Right.
you count your breaths. Want you to be aware and bring your attention to it.
And here's the thing about that. One of the reasons why people have, in some respects, like I said, they're, obviously we have our own personalities and those kinds of things can create challenges for us and how we interact with people. But to me, one of the things that why this is so anxiety provoking for people is because, by and large, the average person is very disconnected from themselves, and they're also therefore really, in large part, disconnected from their loved ones and other people, not understanding that the energy in the universe is found in anything and everybody, so everything is all connected. To bring that back to the individual, what's that mean? The average person doesn't always even understand what's going on in their own thoughts and their thinking and their beliefs. They don't understand how they're like, how do you feel? I'm not sure. um why are you doing that? I don't know. I mean, how times you hear kids say that? I don't know. They just acting. And that level of disconnect means that you don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Therefore, you can't alter what you're doing, and you can't therefore alter your results. That then shows up, that lack of that disconnect means then there also, what we're doing is living up in our heads. And if you're living up in your head, what you're doing is living life based upon a construct, meaning what you think it is as opposed to what it is. So the purpose of quote unquote mindfulness, which all that means is to be fully present and connected to and immersed in whatever is happening right now, that is something that you just do moment by moment. And what it does is connect you to yourself, and it connects you to the experience of life in a way that it's just, all of a sudden you see the majesty and the beauty and the awe in life that's always been there, but you were disconnected from. So I tell people, even with myself, do this, and it's such an amazing experience. Even if you wash in a dish, just fully immerse yourself in the experience of, how's the water feel? How's the soap feel? How does the dish feel? And you suddenly experience what I call the magic of that's in life in every moment. It's been there the whole time, but we've been living up in our heads, disconnected from it. So now if you shift that from that to your family and your kids that you're having to deal with, come out of your head about who you think they are and how you think they should be behaving, and discover who they really are. Who is this person?
And
What?
I'm glad you talked about discovering who people really are. So I gotta hit you with this question. So you have people living under one roof
Uh-huh.
24/7, and
Mhm.
you talk about being disconnected. Any
Mhm.
thoughts from in general about kind of managing love and relationships during this time, and also for folks who are just starting relationships during this time? Because I hear you kept using this word disconnected, and you talked about mindfulness, having one mind. But then what advice do you have for those individuals who might be struggling during this time of their own personal relationships with their significant other?
So that goes back to what I was starting to say, which is we have to be willing to discover who this person is, to know who they are, not based upon who I think they're supposed to be. And how are you here to meet my needs? And a lot of times, if you really kind of sit back and pay attention to your own thinking and your own beliefs, what's going on in our heads a lot of the time is that I'm interacting with this person based upon who I think they're supposed to be in order to meet my needs. Therefore, I don't necessarily know who they are. I know who I think they're supposed to be, but I don't know who they are. And the same thing applies to us individually. We don't know who we are. We don't know our gifts. We don't recognize our infinite potential to become and do what it is we're here on the planet. So the same thing is true with the people that we're interacting with in terms of loved ones and families. So the reason we're struggling with them is because we don't know who they are and we don't accept them as they are. We're interacting with them based upon who we want them to be in order to meet our needs. And if you're not that, you're a problem.
Wow. You a problem for folks that are listening out. You are a problem. So earlier you mentioned a couple of resources. I love to ask more in terms of if people have decided that they want to seek therapy right now, where can they start with trying to find a therapist? And also, if someone isn't able to, maybe insurance doesn't pay for it or they don't have the financial means to cover it, what might be some other resources that they could look into for relates to anxiety, depression, and also some of the issues around the relationships, because people are really showing up as themselves right now. And a lot of things are going to come out of this we're going to discover, but there's some people that need some more help. How can you support them? How can you or can you lead them into a direction where they can get those supports?
Okay, so let me say, because I want to make sure that we have an opportunity to get these other options in terms of some other things that people can do. Mm-hmm. I already mentioned just pausing and taking a few breaths throughout the day. As simple and as, for some people, they may say, that's stupid. Let's just say, there's some people are going to say that. But the fact of the matter is, what you're doing is you're connecting to yourself by connecting to your breathing. And by doing that, you're also altering the chemicals in your brain and in the rest of your body. So what you're doing is then you're starting to alter your body's chemistry and the way it works in a way that alleviates anxiety, in a way that helps to alleviate depression. So this is not woo-woo stuff. This is science we're talking about. If you do also things like meditation, and again, meditation can be moving. It doesn't have to be you sitting still. You can sit there drinking your cup of coffee or a cup of tea or your pop or you're eating or whatever it is you're doing. Or if you're sitting still on the mat and completely tune in to what you're doing. Again, that slows what's going on in your body and helps it relax, help it to calm down, and help it to be healthy. Yoga is the same premise. What you're doing is you're tuning your mind into your body. You're connecting because you're paying attention to where your body is in space. So you are drawing your attention from outside of you to within you to be connected to yourself and what you're doing and what's going on with you. So those kinds of things are things that people can do at home that hopefully wouldn't require too many other resources, because if you have some things that are on TV, you have some things that are, DVDs or Blu-rays. Some people have, subscriptions to certain services. So those are things that you can do also. In terms of, and I just wanted to, in terms of connect, just kind of being concrete about the whole issue about people and family. If you want to connect to somebody, you got to be willing to leave your world and go into theirs. What do I mean specifically about that? Okay, I got a teenager. Of course, he loves gaming. I can say, again, what's the big deal about that? I don't want to do that. But guess what? If I want to connect to him, I need to go into his world. If that's what he loves, then I need to be willing to sit and listen to him tell me about gaming. Explain to me what this is. Explain to me why it works. What's the objections? What are we trying to do here? Why do you enjoy this? How are you connecting to other people and community and those kinds of things? That's what it means to go into their world in order to connect to them. What matters to you? What's important to you?
And they have to be willing to invite you into that space as well. Because I think invitation is important as well. Going into their world, but then also being invited. It's like coming to a party and not being on the list and you just show up. People don't really, but being invited to the party, it's a big deal. And so I love how you talked about coming into that person's world, but I also want that person to be mindful that I want to invite you into my space, because they're basically sharing a gift. I mean, you might think gaming is stupid, but then you look at the numbers and be like, oh, you can make this much money in the gaming world. So
Hmm.
again, it's being invited, but then also being willing to go into their space. Keep going with your strategies.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how understanding that we're already connected because again, you know, and I just want to add this because it's so important. When it comes to mental health, our brains are not in a separate container from the rest of our bodies. It's all one being, just different aspects of the one being. But brain health is so important because everything that you do, with the exception of a few simple reflexes, everything of it, all of it is coming through the brain, all of it. So if you don't have a healthy brain and healthy mind, then your experience of things becomes more and more limited and frankly more and more distorted. And so that's why we have to understand it's that those why it's mental health is so important. I never understood how people seem to think that the rest of your health is more important than your brain health is. And I've had a conversation with somebody who he even said to me, um, mental illness, you can't have mental illness. And I said to them, I said, are you trying to tell me that you can have illness in every other tissue and organ in your body except your brain? Um, and, and
Is
then
he okay? I hope he doesn't have any letters behind his name or in front of his name. I mean, I got a couple of letters I would like to give the person, but
no, no, no. It was a non-medical professional, but I'm
okay.
saying, but those are the kinds of beliefs that we have that are very distorted and inaccurate and not the truth. But those beliefs, that the belief system, that BS is what's driving our behaviors and the actions we take and how we ignore uh, doing the things that create and sustain health.
Well, you know what
So
I'm
again,
seeing? So let me tell you that I'm seeing more of that right now with this virus. All of these individuals who, and you don't have to have a degree to know some good stuff. But what I'm
mhm,
concerned with is some of the most unhealthy people are giving people false hope about this virus, about things that you can do to overcome this, things that you can eat or things that you can. But what I'm loving from you is you're talking about brain health, focusing on your brain, focusing on your thought, the understanding the power of breath, understanding that there are some things that you can control, understanding there's some people that's going to need to be spiritually in a timeout away from you while you're trying to get yourself through this time. And so you're giving some very, very practical things. But I'm really concerned as I look at social media that there's some vulnerable people, Doc, and you know this. There's some vulnerable people who are looking for any way out of this. And some of the information that they're giving can make them literally lose their mind, make their body sicker and even more sicker. So I'm really concerned about that.
so here's the thing. We, it's remember what I said to you about you need to recognize who people are and deal with them as they are and not who you want them to be in order to meet your needs. Remember I said that?
Uh huh.
So now take that and let's move to something simple. If you have a bottle of water, what can you pour out of that bottle?
Whatever's in the bottle.
Right? Can you pour out tea, Kool-Aid, milk, juice, champagne, wine? Can you pour any of that out of a bottle of water if that's what's in the bottle?
No.
No. You can only draw out or pour out what's in there. So it's important to recognize what what's in that person. You're going to get out of them what's in them. Don't expect more than that. Don't expect something other than that. So it doesn't matter if you're talking about the leadership of this country if the information that they give is misinformed. You need to consider the source. And if the source does not know of what it speaks, then you need to put that on ignore. Push the ignore button and you need to listen to the people who are trained and educated and are experts in health and wellness. The people who are the epidemiologists, the people who are the virologists, which means they specialize with viruses, the people who are the epidemiologists and who understand how things work in populations, how illnesses is happens and spreads in populations, how those things work in populations. Those are the people that you need to pay attention to. We need to understand something, that the Chinese character for crisis is actually composed of two characters. One of the characters for their in crisis, one of the characters that represents crisis is, one of them is danger and the other character is opportunity. And that's that's what we're in right now, is a crisis. So anytime you're facing a crisis, there is danger, but there's an opportunity. And the opportunity is to develop that infinite potential within us in a way that we never imagined before, in order to create something new and better and different, in order to prepare us for something else that's coming down the road. You're adding in tools. So just consider the source from which your information flows. If you wanted water, you want it in a clean container. You don't necessarily need a specific container, but you need a clean container. You don't want dirty water.
Well, we're going to leave it right there. I can talk to you forever. I mean, your research, your energy, your practical solutions for us that are dealing with this pandemic right now really is helping me. I took tons of notes that I'm going to share with my family. I'm hoping that the listeners paid attention, because you mentioned all these experts, and the reason why we want to bring you on the show is because you are one of those experts, not only just an expert, but a close friend. But I want people to be able to reach out to you to continue the conversation. How can our sound bombing community get in contact with you? And do you have any final thoughts?
So let me say this. Number one, I'm on social media. Handle is Balin A, Durr, MD, which is spelled B as in boy, ALIN, middle initial A, last name Durr, D as in David, URR, MD. So I'm on Facebook and I'm on Twitter. I also have a YouTube channel, which is based upon, has the same name as the book, Heaven Abounds in You, The Journey to Joy. The book is available on Amazon. And that is also my YouTube channel, which is Heaven Abounds in You with Dr. Durr. And the videos on there are 3 to 5 minutes a piece. You've alluded to some of the videos I did when I went to Paris, because I love travel because it expands my mind, it expands my perspective, so that I get to see a different way of doing things. And I want to leave these simple things with people, which is how you see things. Our intellect, we don't know everything. Therefore, it's important to acknowledge, I don't know everything. So I need to remain open. And if I remain open, then I don't know how it is. I'm willing to discover how it is. And I'm going to learn some new things. I'm going to learn some new approaches. I'm going to learn some new possibilities. And so fundamentally, what I tell people is when your thinking is limiting, it's creating and reinforcing anxiety and depression, because you have the physical structure and function that's maybe not working properly, that can create depression, anxiety. But there's also the thoughts I'm thinking. So if I'm sucking on poison, negative, harmful thoughts that say I'm not good enough, don't have what it takes, I can't meet this challenge, I'm going to get sick, then you need to do what I tell people. You need to potty train your mind. So right now you're letting your mind pee and poop all over the place wherever it wants to, and you need to get it under control. And we have the ability and the power to do that. You can choose what you believe. You can choose what you engage with and how you do that. So we need to get it under control, potty train your mind. And so again, that means looking at what's truth, what's not truth, and acting upon what's truth and saying, if this ain't the truth, no, that's not the truth. This is the truth. I'm capable. I have control over me. I have control over my choices. Therefore, I have control of the results that I create. And we are going to get through this. I understand it is logical to be anxious, and for some people to be fearful with uncertainty. But again, uncertainty gives us not only danger, but it also gives us possibilities. It gives us opportunities. So embrace that part of things, and then take the actions that are consistent with being safe and fulfilling purpose and moving ourselves forward. In the same way, some of the resources are more limited because of the not having access to going to see people. But there is uh, which SAMHSA, which is it's a government agency which is on mental health, and they have a website, and then you can also they have a 24-hour
Like a
number
hotline.
that you yeah, they have a 24-hour hotline, and it's SAMHSA is SAMHSA, which is Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services. And they have a hotline that you can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They have a special line for people that are homeless. They have a special line for veterans. Their national helpline number is 1-800-662-HELP. Um, uh, and numerically wise, it's 1-800-662-4357. So they'll give you treatment referrals. They'll give you information. Again, they're available 24/7 for people who are, having thoughts of suicide or just in distress. Again, they're available for 24/7. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is 1-800-273-TALK. Again, that number is 1-800-273-8255. You mentioned Headspace, and it's interesting that one of the other things, I mean, I've done is also a trilogy podcast that's going to be coming out about opioid dependence. The first episode is, and then the next episode is depression. The third episode is suicide, and because we know these are critically important issues. And I'm also working on a TV show, frankly, that's going to be about mental health, because we want to inform and educate people, but also entertain them in a way that helps them learn the information and be able to utilize and do some things and make a difference. You mentioned the Headspace app, and there's some other ones that are out there. There's some people that are providing telepsychiatry services, meaning that the telemedicine, which is you can do it online with them. And then also, that part of the introduction you mentioned was that I work for a FQHC. I've worked for two of them, and the wonderful things about those federally qualified health centers is that they charge on a sliding scale basis. So you will never be refused services because of your inability to pay. And FQHCs, they offer a variety of services. They obviously offer behavioral health. They offer primary care, which would be pediatrics, internal medicine, family practice, OB-GYN, dentistry, and also sometimes optometry. So we offer all of those services at the Will County Community Health Center. So the suggestion is to check, obviously, your local FQHCs in order to access those services. The other thing is obviously insurance. If you have insurance, whether it's Medicaid or whether it's a commercial insurance, is to check to see what providers are, in your network that you have access to, and to see how they're adjusting and accommodating the offering of their services. And fundamentally, you have to reinforce with yourself and say, this situation is temporary. There's nothing in this physical universe that is permanent. So this situation that we're experiencing with the coronavirus is temporary, and we will get through this. You just have to believe that, and then know that you have the power and the ability to take action and do those things that are going to keep you healthy, that's going to keep you safe, that's going to reinforce and develop and deepen your connection to yourself, to the people in your family and the community to help and support, reach out to them. People talk on the phones, but then they also have the access. You can do, online chats with people. And it is because we are never disconnected. In mind, we may think we are or believe that we are, but we've always been connected. We are in the universe and the universe is in us. And people go, what do you mean by that? What I mean by that is that's science, it's truth. The atoms in your body comes from exploding stars. The calcium in your bones comes from exploding stars. The iron in your blood comes from exploding stars. We are in the universe and the universe is in us. Therefore, everything is all connected. So we have that infinite potential, that life force, that energy within us to face and meet this challenge, to overcome it and to move forward, because this too shall pass.
Wow, I
And
told you in my introduction, folks, that I was bringing on the right person at the right time to deal with this situation, and I'm hoping that you all took notes. If you did not, you can always sort of rewind it. So I cannot let you get out of here without answering the super bomb questions. This is my favorite part of the show. Not saying that I wasn't enjoying and learning from the other part of the show, but this is my favorite part of the show because this allows people to see another part of the people that come on the show. So here we go. You ready?
I was born ready.
Always ready. So all right, here we go. What's your favorite word?
Transformation.
What's your favorite quote or Bible verse?
That would be Romans 12:2. Be ye not conformed to the world, but instead be ye transformed by the renewal of your mind.
I hear you preaching, sister. There you go. There you go. What's your superpower?
Wow, my superpower. I think that it is the ability through words, both spoken and written, again, to awaken and empower people to draw out of them that infinite potential in order to live the life they dream of and to live life in a sweet spot.
I know that's your favorite thing, the sweet spot. Speaking of the sweet spot, what's your spirit animal or animal spirit?
That's something I hadn't really thought of before. I know that I think very much the uh, the animal spirit that would represent me very much would definitely be a lioness.
Okay, Miss Lioness. Miss Lioness, what do you wish you had more time to do?
I think it's just simply to do this work, to reach as many people and to touch as many hearts and lives, to awaken and empower people to live out their infinite potential, to live life in the sweet spot. That's my purpose. That's my love. That is my joy at this time in life.
All right, so this is your joy, your love. You're on stage at the Miss America Talent Competition. What would your talent be?
Hmm. It would definitely be performing a piece, something spoken. It's definitely spoken word.
I could see that. And so
Hmm.
you did some
Because you know,
amazing.
I'm a poet,
I know
right?
you a poet. I know
Yeah,
you a
you should you
poet.
should you should you should see some of the stuff I've done where it's just just brought the house down.
Okay, so since you're a poet, come on, Miss Poet. Is there something that you want to share with the sound bombing community right now? Dr. Durr coming to the stage, the poet in the building. Is going to bless us with one of her dope poems.
So this is titled Two Joined Souls, and it's from my book Heaven Abounds in You. So again, it's Two Joined Souls. It's a love that nurtures, nourishes, enriches, and transforms. It transcends the physical and what is human because it is of the spirit. It is an expression of the energy generated by two connected souls. It flows freely and easily. Yes, There is delicious passion, but there is always an underlying tenderness to their way with each other. It is fed and sustained by the energy of love that each gives to the other in service to the other. It calms both, and nothing about it feels like work. It is done because one knows that this is what is necessary to benefit the other at this time. They each know this about the other because they allow the other to know. They recognize each other as a precious gift and happily treasure each other like sparkling gems. This is grounded in honesty, integrity, and regard for the well being of the other that equals their own. They understand that harming the other means harming themselves. Their ultimate wish is to create a union worthy of exaltation. It is their hearts speaking to each other. It is the magic of two joined souls.
There you have it, psychiatrist turned poet. Dr. Durr, I just want to thank you again for your insight. I want to thank you for taking some time to spend with my sound bombing listeners.
Darnell, I just really want to say thank you for inviting me on in order to be able to have this conversation with you and your listeners. I'm again here to help and just so again grateful and thankful for the opportunity to be able to offer this and to be helpful to those who are seeking and open. So thank you again so much. I deeply appreciate you, my brother, and so thankful for the work that you are doing on this platform and others.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate your thankfulness. And I know that your message is going to resonate with our listeners as we deal with this national or international crisis. So I thank you for taking the time to hang out with me. And I would also like to thank my engineer, Alec Blanc, my producer, Kimberly Peterson, Supremacy for our theme music, and all of you for listening. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, and stop being stingy and share me with your friends. And as always, believe that something wonderful is about to happen and that some people miss the message because they're too busy looking for the mess. Thanks for tuning in, and do something for someone other than yourself today. You've been listening to Sound Bombing. Peace.